Welcome to the show, Troy. Welcome.
Let me know if this works. Sorry.
All
I
right.
apologize. I'm at home and not at the office
Well,
tonight.
I apologize for Wirecast killing the stream briefly. I apologize for that. Am I saying your name right? It's Troy Naquin? Close?
Man, I tried to tell you this, man. I got a wife of 20 years pretty much that can't say it right. Naquin?
Naquin.
I didn't even say it right.
Naquin.
Naquin. It's
Naquin.
Cajun French. The Q is a K. The N is silent at the end. Naquin. But
okay.
I probably don't say it right either.
Naquin.
I hardly ever say it.
Got it. Naquin.
Yeah.
Got it. All right.
Yeah, Troy.
So, for people who don't know you and who aren't on your Beard of the Month calendar,
Beard of the Month calendar.
tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Well, I follow this guy Cristobal over here that does like Gold Rush and all the other shows. Oh no, that's Jake Sloan. I'm sorry. Dude, you look like you're right off a Discovery set, bro. Like you're like backstage, like about to bring Tony Beats in and Peacemakers around the corner. Like, dude, love it. No, my name's Troy. Some people may know me from a previous FPV life as Chef PV. Which was kind of when I was a hobbyist and an enthusiast and just somebody kind of navigating this whole world. I kind of was known for being that person on YouTube and some other stuff, nothing too crazy. But basically I saw FPV and drones, and not just FPV, but drones in general and then FPV. And I saw all these things coalescing and decided to like find my way into doing it for a living, not knowing what doing it for a living would mean. I'm not a shooter. I'm not a camera guy, so I don't have any of those skill sets under my belt. But I build stuff really well because I was a chef. I'm able to kind of make things happen in sequence often and time again, and coordinate a lot of things together. So it just kind of worked. So now we build drones for a living. My company, we build drones and provide drones for professionals to use in FPV.
Excellent.
So that's the short answer.
Excellent. By the way, can you see us?
I can. Can you not see me?
Okay, no, just because since the crash, everything is screwed up. I just want to make sure that you can see us.
I feel like I actually I should have never messaged you, Jake, to let you know that I was not even like on time myself. But the crash happened right when I was rushing home from soccer practice for my kiddo.
Oh, good. It was divine intervention.
Jake, tell him not to call me for 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden it crashed. We actually walked in, and I didn't know if my internet, like connectivity switching between the car and the house, like crashed the video, because it happened right as I walked in the back door. So I was freaking out, going, "Oh my gosh!"
Anyway, it all worked out. It all worked out. So you build cinelifters. For people who don't know, what is a cinelifter?
Yeah, man, there's so much. You guys touched on so much already. It was awesome, kind of hearing the whole talk, especially with Jake, about FPV and the directors and meeting those higher ups. And I know that's not part of the question, but I just wanted to say I'd love to talk about that at some point, because that's a huge. I've had about 3 hours of the phone calls today talking about that, and me and Jake have talked about that a lot. We build cinelifters, which to some people and some of the real drone pros out there will tell you they've been cinelifting forever, and it's just called a heavy lift drone. And our drones are small. But basically the idea is, the term comes, I think it was coined by my understanding by kind of Benoit Fink, who's known as Finky FPV out of Europe. He's one of like the most cutting edge, especially when it comes to Europe. He's probably at the top. With Freybot and a couple other people out there, as far as, again, kind of being at the core foundation of implementing FPV on sets and really getting what we were just talking about, getting directors and different people to recognize and then buy into it. And then they get, in Europe, directors are ahead of the game by a year, probably. And so putting big cameras on FPV drones was the next step from what they started doing, which was 2 or 3 years ago, putting naked GoPros on micro drones and doing some really crazy things, actually going as far back as 2015 and the guys at Muscle Beach, putting those GoPros on there and using them in cinematic ways on mainstream or big screen forms. And so the next iteration was cinelifters, which was, how do we put a big camera like a Komodo, Zcam, BGH1, Blackmagic Pocket, whatever you want to do, FX6, and put it on a FPV drone and fly it And so that's where, Cinelifter came from. Was Benoit kind of coined that term and made a group. And then that kind of I ran with it with hashtagging. Anybody knows me, I love my hashtags. So I've helped kind of propagate the hashtaggery of it.
Hashtaggery. I love that.
Hashtaggery.
I'm going to start using that. Yeah. No, that's great. And Jake was just showing off. Now this is a little out of my realm and my budget, but Jake's, and you guys have worked together, haven't you? You guys know each other?
I mean, Jake's bought some stuff for me. Jake's a huge supporter of kind of what I'm doing, or what I'm a part of doing, at least. I mean, I don't no way want to claim anything, man. Like the drones you're seeing right there are not my designs, or not my continual ideas. They're maybe bits and pieces, or kind of some things that evolved from me talking to maybe Andy or not Chris, but different people that are involved in this stuff. That's what at the heart of what Quad Standard Labs really was. And so it kind of, to follow up on the original question of what I'm doing and what we're doing. I started Quad Standard Labs after working in various companies. I've worked for some of those Chinese companies chasing DJI. I've worked for people developing software, and I've worked for FPV companies, not my own. And in 2018-19, I kind of decided that professional FPV was something that I saw, and even people within Randy will probably never admit this, but like a guy like Randy Scott Slave and I had out to South by Southwest in 2018 to a talk that I had about the influence of FPV. And I wanted it to be about cinemaking, but they needed it to be about sports, or at least have a tie-in. So we three-pronged it with sports, entertainment, and movie making. And at the time, this was 2018, where even Randy was like, I use drones and FPV. I don't know how much we're going to see that in real big screen stuff, And funny enough, he's a friend of ours, and actually I just sent him a Terraplane the other day. I think everybody was taken back about a year later when somebody just tried it. And I don't know who's really credited with the first kind of Cinelifter, but whoever really started doing it, we started working with. And Andy and Gab and Nurk and those guys all have like a brain trust of creativity that's always kind of been a part of Andy Shin and Shin Drones kind of designs. So when they asked me to be a part of that, because they saw what I was doing in building squirts and in my relationship with Andy, it just was a perfect fit. And it was like, you guys figure out what works, tell me how it works, I'll build them, and we'll put them in the hands of guys like Jake. And so Jake builds his own stuff, I think, for the most part, but he does build with some of our components, man. And again, he buys stuff from me. So we've had great calls and great talks, tuning talks. He's helped me tune some stuff. And I think recently I shot him a tune and he enjoyed that. So Jake's just awesome, man. He's one of those guys that are right. He's on that fringe of, he's in the community because he chooses to be. But he's also super embedded in, the professional movie making and the cinemaker side, which is, again, we can't have enough guys like him, and we can't have enough guys like him or people that are on set just trying to get it a better understanding. And if anybody's doing like school, like trying to get stuff for educators and helps educators, it's a very similar thing. You're probably battling like trying to let the top of the school board understand how to really spend the money the right way, when they just want to just do whatever, the state of Texas, teachers committees or whatever are telling them they have to teach. They don't care about what the teachers end up doing as long as it fits some, thing. And so anyways, it's a very similar process of collaboration.
By the way, if anybody has any questions for Troy, put it in the chat there. And Jake,
this isn't so family friendly. I can't sip cider, right? No, I heard y'all talking about drinking and
cider away,
pigeon
man.
Jerky.
Whatever.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, man. You make yourself at home. So I've never flown. I have video where I fake flew Jake's octocopter there, but I never actually did. And I'm glad you didn't ask me to, because I would have been terrified. But what is it like from a pilot standpoint to jump up from like just so you've got a 5-inch, you've mastered acro, and you think you want to take 10 grand in the air. What's that like? Jake or Troy, either one you can answer that.
Well, so I'm very curious to hear what Troy has to say. But for me, jumping from this 5-inch here to this was terrifying, because not only do you have, you only have 4 little propellers here, and they're relatively quiet, but then you jump into this thing, which sounds like a really big, angry thing that wants to tear your head off at the earliest convenience. And you plug it in, back here, and all the motors start twitching, and then your first time to turn it on and everything starts spinning it's just a little terrifying. And then when you go and stick a red camera, this $6,000, and then usually it's another 1,000 or so for the lens. And then you have some director come and go, you see those boats out there that are a mile away and they're racing at 100 miles an hour? I want you to go chase them with your big drone and the big camera and get some footage of those things out there running around. And it's like, okay, yeah,
and you have a scuba team on
problem.
hand in case I'm in the water and you can recover all my stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you play it off real cool. You're like, yeah, no problem. And then after you get done, you're going back there to drink water, and it's like, it was good.
Jake, can I play this the caterpillar thing? Is that what you used to film the caterpillar? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So this is a finished product. Tell us which shots are done with what.
So this was done with a car crane. These were done with a Moby rig. That's a car crane. And then there's this was done with an Alta X with an area on it. That was done. This right here was done with the FPV drone right there, the big one. Mm-hmm. That was me with an Air 2S messing around at lunchtime.
Okay.
That's the car crane. This was the Alta X. And then let's see. There's this is all kind of little stuff here. This was done. Some of that was Alta X. That was me messing around at lunchtime with my Air 2S. And then let's see. And that was me messing around with my Air 2S while they were filming because I was bored and I was I kept saying I was getting behind the scenes, and they ended up using like 4 of the shots that I was just messing around with. That was the big Cinelift drone.
Right.
Alta. This is Alta. That's a car rig. This is a car rig.
How long does it take to do
this?
Something like this? I guess
this was 4 days.
4 days.
4 solid days in August in central Illinois at 100 degrees in the sun and the dust, and I just about died.
Yeah, people don't appreciate.
Alaska, like I was not ready for the heat, man.
Yeah, bringing Alaska down into the heat. People don't appreciate how long.
And this is one of the times that Troy and I actually were collaborating, because we were both having the same issues where the motors were getting so hot they would start burning up, and so we were trying to go back and forth and figure out ways to bring the motor temperatures down where you could fly and then not have to set the drone in an air-conditioned car to get the temperatures down before you flew again.
Oh.
So a lot of these shots were me with an Air 2S. And then the money shots were these shots. This here was the big Cinelift drone, which was actually flown by a friend of mine. And then I flew the other one right here doing that shot after that, because we got to that point, which everything was leading up to that jump with the Hot Wheels truck, the Baja truck. And they go, we only have one shot. The motor's getting ready to explode or go to pieces on this truck. So everything has to roll. And we basically, it was like, okay. So we got everything in the air. We had cameras set up everywhere. And then we had one shot to get that jump. And then that was it. And sure enough, he came off the jump, rolled down around the edge, and the motor quit.
So Troy, you will get with pilots and filmmakers and try to specifically build something to their needs, like whether it's in a cold or a hot environment, or
yeah, I mean, we can definitely do some things like that. We don't typically. This is a situation. It's actually funny. So what we do at Quad Center Labs, or what I've aimed and positioned, kind of the mission of what we provide is we try to build the same things over and over again. And we try to, again, work with the people that are building or flying and developing this stuff to use in these types of applications, and understanding what the best applications are. And then we're unifying kind of a build for as many of the builds as we can, to where what we build is reliable. So it's funny, you were asking about how hard, or what does it feel like to go put a big camera on one of these things. I've been transparent as heck with every client that I've ever had. I don't fly cameras. I don't have cameras. I'm not a camera guy. I don't shoot, which probably sounds crazy to some people. But I would put our track record against anybody that says that, hey, you need a camera to strap on there to go build it and fly it. We tune it by, black boxing and logging it and working with a lot of the best tuners on the planet. Like we've worked with pretty much all of the best tuners. And when you build the platform the right way with the right hardware choices for people to use, whether they think they need something else or not, then typically we don't have issues. In the issues that we're talking about, funny enough, with Jake, was we stepped outside of our box. I was building a build a certain way, and we did for a year and a half. And I decided to start selling them another way because people were requesting them. And as much as I was pushing back saying I don't like to build that way, I'm not a guy to turn business away if people are proving that it works again. I got to jump on board and build it. So got enough requests, and I said, we're going to put this on the site. And we started building them with certain motor combinations. And that's where even the tuners were just getting back to me and going, we're just, we don't like this. But we got to a good point. I think we found a good place after working with a lot of people. And now we offer that a little bit more upfront. It's on, we have them for sale again on our site. But for a little while, we pulled them off the site because we were not comfortable with some total condition things. Because the answer to your question is no, I can't account for everything. But what we can do is we can build the best product for whatever you're trying to do, whether it be a micro drone, squirt, terraplane, a 5-inch chase drone, a 7-inch long range drone, or a Cinelifter all the way up to 12S, 13, 15, 18 inches. We can do all those different things. I mean, as long as you have the money and the understanding of what you need to do to fly those things, right? Right. So, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the answer.
Okay. Well, there's a link to your stuff, both your YouTube channel and your website. Do we have any questions in the chat from anybody? Because
I haven't seen any questions, but I will say one thing I really appreciate about Troy is, especially if you're on Facebook and in part of the FPV Cinelifters group, he is constantly out there trying to help people. And I've seen other people kind of jump into this space and be very silo-minded, like, closed garden kind of thing, where Troy has not been that way at all that I've seen. And that's one really cool thing about, that's one of the few groups I'm a part of on Facebook, because it hasn't turned into a toxic mess, but there's a whole group of people who Troy is certainly part of that are really trying to understand this kind of new emerging technology as far as being able to put big cinema cameras on a drone that'll go rip around at 100 miles an hour. And everybody's really focused on pushing it together, forward together, which is really awesome. I bought a lot of components from Troy because I really like his components. I really like the process of building drones too, which is why I've built most of mine. But I do, anytime anybody asks me, like, where should I get a drone, I tend to push them toward Troy, because not only does he build really good products, but he also backs those products up with a lot of support, which is hard to come by in the FPV space right now for a lot of things. So one case in point is I was hired to do a shoot for a TV show, Chicago PD, and they were very, very specific about, they wanted a drone to fly really fast, really low to the ground, and backward, because they wanted to reverse the shot in post. And so first thing I did was started talking to Troy. So have you ever thought about building one of these that'll fly backward? Like, basically take the whole entire drone, you put the FPV camera back here so that the cinema camera can fly like this.
Oh,
and
right.
when you fly backward, then at high speed, it looks right. And coincidentally, he had. And so, and he was kind enough to share some of the process he was going through and help me like think through it. And then, I don't know if I provided very much value back other than to go, hey, dude, it works. And it actually worked really well. And they were super happy with it. But yeah, it's stuff like that I really, really appreciate in this community, because I've been a part of other communities where it's like you ask a question and you either get stomped on like, that's a stupid question. Why would you even ask that? You clearly aren't ready to do this stuff. or people just won't. They just won't help. They won't. They
Right.
won't.
People don't want to
give you
be
any advice at all.
People
And
don't want to
Yeah.
be made to sound stupid, and then they'd be afraid to ask the questions, and you don't want that.
Exactly, and that's what I think is so cool about this whole space. That I mean, I've only been a part of it now for maybe a year, I guess. But it's really, you got people like Benoit who are over in Europe and other people here in the United States and other places in the world, that everybody is really collectively trying to push this whole thing forward, because it's kind of like where drones were maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago, where it was like, oh my gosh, that's a cool drone shot. Now FPV is kind of jumping into that same space where all of a sudden directors and producers are starting to go, oh, so you have a drone that'll go fast and we can put a cinema camera on it? Well, like, what sort of stuff could we do with it? And they're starting to get the understanding of like, okay, this works really well, like that jump. We couldn't film that jump with that Baja truck with any other kind of drone, because it just wouldn't have that energy and that movement to it. And we couldn't do it with a car rig because that jump was like 33 feet or 35 feet high, and the arm would only go up like 12 feet. So to get that chase shot that gives you that really fast-moving POV feel, like almost like a video game, we really had to use the FPV drones, and it's really cool to be part of that sort of community. And yeah, so I am curious, Troy, though, because I haven't seen anybody else ask any questions. What has been one of your like standout things that you've worked on so far, kind of in this space, that it really is like your highlight or one of your highlights so far?
It's so tough, man. Honestly, like, it's crazy because, first of all, 80% of the time I have no clue what's actually being done with these things. I just don't. Sure, I get tagged in certain things, certain level, right? You have that Instagram marketing, car commercial stuff. But when we're talking about movies, like, for instance, you had the issue with, or not the issue, but the flying backwards Sicario, which oddly enough was actually the same Sicario kind of test bed area we were talking about this other stuff. That was somebody that called us up, and it was a pretty big team that is well known within movie making, and said, we're on a pretty big movie, and told me the name and said, we need this by next week to do this shot. What do you got? And I was like, and it took us 2 hours of back and forth probably on a call that day, where we first started with just building an upside down Sicario, which I don't know why that was my first instinct, but we talked through that. And then it ended up with, wait a second. Like, the answer was just slap something on the back, reverse the radio controls like you do on a cheater quad, and you can fly it backwards anytime you want, land it, switch your radio back, and go fly it forward, pull the other air unit off. And so, we figured that out. And then it was like, oh yeah, we can meet the deadline, right? The deadline of 3 days to ship before that was a little daunting, but, just stuff like that. Yes, I'm proud of the individual achievements, and man, I'm one to brag about them when I see them, and I try to, at least bring light to what we're doing, because again, there's not a lot of hoorah moments that we're able to just share. Our clients don't really send us, stuff straight off of NASCAR or wherever, but we know that we're there. We know that our machines are being used, or at least were in some situations. And so, yeah, I think it's just seeing it, which I see it all the time. And whether it's something I did or, like you said, part of this movement, man, because FPV drones, if you got to sum it up in what where we need the perspective to go, is the idea, again, that it's limitless. It is the camera that can be wherever you want it to be. And drone shots are still needed and are going to be drone shots. And there's going to be new kind of refreshing in between ways that we can use these traditional drones by even implementing FPV, for instance, like on an Inspire, being able to proximity, put that Inspire now in better situations. Yep. There's ways that we can use the concepts and really, again, the idea of total control and dumb drones, right? Like, drones should be dumb. Pilots and operators should be really smart. If you need a smart drone, use a smart drone. But like you said, there's certain shots and certain things that I can't have obstacle avoidance go off when the truck gets too close. Like, I can't have that. Not if I'm trying to get some shot of like the fender flare of the, Jeep as it goes over some dune or something. I don't know, whatever it is. I'm not even a shooter, and I come up with this like stupid idea of what I'm going to use them for. But anyways, yeah, man, seeing guys like you and people like you just doing what you do, and getting the people to, I mean, just keeping the doors. I mean, it's not even keeping the doors open, like getting called daily and emailed daily about, do this, let's do that. You know, can we do bigger? Yes. You know, write me a check. Let's do it. You know?
Yeah.
That's the fun stuff, man. So I just want to continue to be part of, again, like you said, fostering and shaping the community. I didn't get here without a ton of other people contributing and helping push people my way, like you said. I do want to say I do try to share. There is a balance and a fine line, and those that do share as much as they do, man, like they definitely deserve some awards. I, in the very beginning, was sharing as much as I pretty much everything. And I had to kind of shut that down a little bit just because competition is thick, man. I pay good money to work with good people on a lot of this stuff. And there's certain things that, you know, a guy hits me up on Instagram and asks for the tune we're just talking about. I'm more than likely going to tell you no. And it's not because I don't want to share a tune with you. It's because I don't have the time to go through the process of helping you, of first understanding your build that you're about to put this on, and know if I'm okay with you doing that with what we did. Because I know why ours are tuned the way they are. And it's because tuners look at the logs and say, hey, man, that's a clean build. Let's do this. And we can push limits probably that others can't. And I think that's where I would just say, if you're out there looking to build your own Cinelifter, please do it if you think you can do it. But also be prepared to fly it with dummy weights for a long time until you really trust your work. Because, again, I'd put our track record up against anybody. We don't not make mistakes, and we don't not build stuff that eventually something happens to. But in the Cinelifter side, not a lot has ever really happened.
Yeah.
And you know, things are going to happen though, you know.
Let me ask you this. Yeah. What do you fly for fun? Do you fly for fun? Do you build Frankenstein rigs and just get out there and
I
experiment?
fly Cinelifters with 5-pound dummy weights for fun.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, and that's true. Like that footage you were playing is Troy going out there going, look, I just built this drone. Here's a 5-pound dummy weight, and I'm now going to rip it around like a 5-inch and just see if I can crash it or wreck it or tear it apart in midair.
Right, because that's
Jake, the funny. Yeah,
that's what you're doing here. You're maidening one of your builds here.
Yeah, I like to say Chef PV always comes out. This is the thing. Nothing I've ever sold or has ever gone out the door has never been thrashed on to the point that I would thrash my own thing. Now, the crazy thing is this. We did reach a threshold, and part of the issue me and Jake were discussing about this other build stuff was I think Troy was going a little too hard on some stuff and was putting his builds. I mean, I literally went out and tried to kill it, and I was able to start killing drones is what my problem was. And these were not cheap drones. These are 8 motors, $30 a motor. Like, yeah, $250 mistakes when you decide to go, you know, inverted power, you know, yaw spin to snap roll to then flip with a 5-pound dummy weight or 3-pound dummy weight on a Sicario. And, you know, the tuner was like, wait, what are you doing with this? And I showed him a video, and he's like, oh, bro, I thought you were doing like tuning stuff, like moves. I'm like, no, man, like I'm ripping this thing. And he's like, oh my gosh. So let's throw everything out the window we've done today. Let's go back to ground zero, Troy. And so, yeah, you know, there are limits with these things. And that's the one thing, again, I'd say every build has its limits. And we do build things sometimes that are right on those finite edges where, you know, what we're doing here is trying to keep things small, compact as possible to mitigate being on set being, you know, something that people are afraid of. Something that if it crashes is going to, you know, destroy bigger things. Because in all reality, to carry these cameras, we should be flying Altas and big heavy lift drones. But we're able to do it for brief moments in time. So yeah, I fly Cinelifters. I fly anything for fun. I mean, but I don't have personal drones right now. I've sold every single one I've ever built myself because somebody needs one faster than I can build one, and they just get mine.
Awesome.
I've sold my radio. I've sold my backpack. I've literally sold pretty much every piece of gear I've ever owned at some point because somebody needed it right then and there. And I'm like, here you go.
Well, I have a gazillion questions for you. I hope that I can keep in contact with you. You're a good resource. Because
anytime. And just so everybody knows, again, we do what we say, what I've talked about doing. We do a lot more too. If you ever do want to talk, or just, you got an idea, something that you're developing that you think would help the community in some way, like that you want to put into production, even like that's stuff that we can, talk about doing. I'd love to foster stuff like that. Go to our website. There's a place to book a call any day, man. 5 days a week. You have access to just chat. So
wonderful.
I love doing that.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time, man. It's great. Great to meet you. And Jake, did you have anything else to say before we say goodbye?
No, but I will say, just this is not the only type of drone that Troy builds. This is what we talked a lot about tonight because it's kind of new. But he also builds like little Shendrone slam squirts like this. He builds. This is a 7-inch kind of long range drone. He builds stuff like this. So and this is where I do tell people, if you want to get into FPV, hooking up with somebody like Troy is a much better way of jumping into it than the way I jumped into it, which was a lot of trial and error, and expensive trial and error at that. Because you book the call and you spend some time, he tries to figure out what you want to do, and then and can really, his experience can guide you down a path that you'll be much happier with the end product, the end result of whatever you want to do, whether you're just strapping GoPro and you want to kind of like, do the slow, smooth stuff, or
so he's
you want to get out there and try and crash as much as possible.
He's a tool/instrument maker. If you were a musician and you wanted a specialized violin, he'd build the violin for you. That's what he does.
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Yes.
Troy, whose last name I'm not even going to try to pronounce again, thank you so much for being on. Hope to talk to you again soon, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Have a great day.